Let's go through the criteria now. So the first one is the organization of code. Going from lowest to highest, the lowest one is saying code is very difficult to read. So this is generally when the code has got no blank spaces in between the lines of code. Everything's all squished up. If the code does have blank lines to split up the different locations or choices in the locations, then that scores 1. If you see that there are comments sprinkled throughout the code that describes what's happening and the decisions that the code is making, you can get 2. And if you see good layout with lots of comments describing the more complex aspects of the code, then that will score 3. The quality of code criteria starts off with a 0 if the code does not run. That is, if you click on it and there's an error, that scores 0. If you can start the game without any problems, then that's a 1. If you see that the code uses a variety of functions like print, input, and sleep, that will score you 2. If you see the if statements are being used correctly to handle the different choices within a location, that is 3. And then if the game works completely using if statements and loops to jump between locations, then you get the 4 points. Creativity is the next criteria. If the students have submitted something, they should score a 1, this being a pretty generic type of experience or very closely resembling the starter code. If the students add some original flair to their experience that moves beyond the standard template that they've been given, that gives you a 2. And then they've really gone to town with building up a world with interesting descriptions and builds up suspense, really draws you into the experience, then that will score 3. Looking at the visual appeal, if the game only has white text, that will score a 0. If the code attempts to introduce color and ASCII art, so there may be some problems in here, the ASCII art may not be fitting, or the colors might look a bit messed up, but they've attempted it, that will score a 1. If the colors and ASCII art are successfully integrated into the game and everything looks as it should, that will be a 2. If they've gone above and beyond in terms of introducing animations or really cool student-created ASCII art, then that will score 3. Let's look at the clarity of instructions. If the code doesn't provide any instructions at all to the user, that will score 0. If there are some guides or prompts to tell the user what to type in, whether capital letters are important or not, that will be a 1. And if they've really added an experience where there's a tutorial, guided step-by-step instructions, examples, etc., that will give them a 2. The game complexity criteria will score 0 if the game doesn't run. That is, you click on run and there's an error. If the game is pretty straightforward without a lot of choices, and it's really just a straight line from going one location to another, that will score a 1. If there are multiple choices involved throughout the game, which requires the user to think and make some strategic decisions, that will score a 2. And if there are multiple endings to the game, and the setting is laid out in a way that encourages you to play the game multiple times to achieve the different endings, that will score the highest marks here. And finally, with the state diagram criteria, if no state diagram is submitted, that's a 0. If you do get a state diagram with some missing components, that will score 1. So maybe they haven't included all of the states, or if they've left out choices, or they haven't labeled the arrows correctly, etc. And if a complete state diagram with all the states and all the transitions and arrows and everything's labeled correctly with a starting and ending location, then the full 2 points are awarded there.